Good afternoon, everybody. It's the 20th of May, 2025, and it is 1200 hours here in the Miraflores district in Lima, Peru. For those of you who have never visited here, it really resembles a lot, to me, California. Santa Barbara, some of those, have the nice hills. And I'm speaking this specific area. There are very mountainous regions here. The temperature here is to me it's nice year round. It doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold. Now we're getting to the winter time here, which it does get chilly actually at night, but today it's like, for example, it's 68 degrees. Somewhere between 60, 65, something like that. That's like perfect for me. It's humid today, and it's sunny here in Miraflores. The skies are clear, and there's a deceptive stillness in the air, like the calm that settles before the past catches up. It's the kind of day that feels gentle on the skin, but weighted in the chest, if you're carrying something. For those history or aviation buffs, on the 20th of May, there were two significant events in aviation. In 1927, on the 20th of May, Charles Lindbergh, we all know who that is, right? Took off for a solo transatlantic flight. That was for the first solo transatlantic flight. He departed from Roosevelt Field, which is or was located in New York, in the spirit of St. Louis, for his historic nonstop solo flight to Paris, France. He completed it the next day. Then, 5 years later, Amelia Earhart departs on her transatlantic flight. She took off from Newfoundland, becoming the first woman to fly solo nonstop across the Atlantic, landing in Ireland the next day. Yesterday, Ruth from the writers group was in San Bartolo. Maybe not today, who knows. Diana, also from the writers group, is enjoying herself in Belize. I went scuba diving there in 1999 in the Blue Hole. The reef in Belize is considered second only to the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, which I also went diving in 2008 with the Mike Ball week-long liveaboard diving expedition. It was great, actually. Best diving I've ever seen. So in Chapter 7, Ghost Chase, we leave behind office towers and strategic lies and land boots first in the dust and blood of Afghanistan's Tangi Valley in the Wardak district. I've been there. There's no grandstanding here, just fear, adrenaline, and a target known only as Ghost One to many. Now, of course, his real name is in there, but we targeted him as Ghost One in the book. And at the center of it was Major Eddy Ludt, a man more familiar with paperwork than ambushes, flinching through the gunfire, sprinting through panic, and tripping his way into a bullet that may have changed everything. This isn't a hero's chapter, it's a human one, and that's what makes it hit harder. So let's get into the story. Chapter 7, Ghost 1, 15 April 2010, 0813 hours, Tangi Valley, Wardak Province, Afghanistan, near Ghazni Base. The patrol through the Tangi Valley had a mission to capture or kill their target, Asadullah Rahim Bakshi, known as Ghost One, a local Taliban commander moving from his hidden stronghold to Kabul for a meeting. Everyone in the convoy was in civilian clothes, most of the clothes black or brown, standard for special forces in the area. The valley's terrain mirrored the eastern Sierra Nevada foothills, with its harsh blend of arid ridges, rocky outcrops, and sparse vegetation. Though temperatures were climbing with the arrival of spring, the morning air still carried a crisp chill, hovering around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The rain from the previous day had left the ground damp, the scent of wet earth mingling with the ever-present dust. making the dirt roads slick in some areas. In the trail vehicle of the convoy, Major Eddy Kevin Ludt sat quietly. The convoy consisted of 3 Humvees, the workhorse of the United States military. Leading the patrol in the first vehicle was Captain Dodd. His familiar voice crackled over the radio. "All right, listen up. We need to capture some Taliban fighters if we can. We need fresh intel." Sergeant Charlie Hatterton was the youngest at 26. He was the commander's driver. Slightly pudgy and baby-faced, he looked more like a fresh recruit than a seasoned soldier. In the back seat, directly behind Sergeant Hatterton, was Captain Dodd's non-commissioned officer in charge, Sergeant First Class Dorman, at 6'6" and rail thin and towering over the other people in this convoy. The final passenger in this vehicle was the linguist, Bismillah Khan Mohammadi, a native of Afghanistan's Pashto tribe. He was 43 years old, with deep-set dark eyes, long hair, and a full beard that let him blend seamlessly with the locals. Dorman's voice broke the silence. "I don't know about this Major Ludt guy, sir." His tone carried a note of suspicion. "I've caught him talking to himself. Hell, sometimes arguing with himself. Always got his nose in a book or listening to an audiobook. Either he doesn't say a damn thing or he won't shut up." Captain Dodd said, "He's all right, man. Intel guys are all weird as fuck, and Lutt's no exception. But give him a chance, Charlie. He's not into sports, but he's a scuba bum. Over 200 dives worldwide. Barrier Reef, Belize, Guam, Okinawa. So yeah, he's a nerd. But there's more to him than that." He paused. "And let's be real. He's been feeding us solid intel for months. That's what matters. Besides, his battalion commander is a real piece of work. He can't stand her." "Sir, we're taking fire from the ridgeline!" yelled Staff Sergeant Mark O'Hagan. Major Lutt did not respond, but started checking his M4 assault rifle and pistol to make sure he was ready. He was very nervous. "Get the fuck out and kill those motherfuckers on the ridgeline. Try to capture one of the closer ones if you can," screamed Captain Dodd over the radio. "O'Hagan, you pull security down here and call this in on the radio. Dorman, Tobbs, Listo, you come with me." The caravan vehicle stopped. "Sir," he yelled at Major Lutt, "you're acclimated. I needed to chase that bastard that we saw running into that shaded area down the hill with all the trees in that valley over there. Looks like he's headed for the junkyard. Delsey, you go with him. Try to get at least one alive if you can." "You got this, sir," yelled O'Hagan. "Remember, just like targets at Fort Hood, sir." O'Hagan had seen a lot of combat in Desert Storm. Major Lutt, on the other hand, had never fired a round in anger in his life, not even in Iraq in 2003 and 4 during the invasion that he and Sergeant First Class O'Hagan were in together. Just targets. "Don't make me have to come save your ass. You're my battle buddy, but I'm too old for this shit now, and I'm retiring soon, so don't screw it up," he added with a grin. Sergeant Delsey seemed to be struggling with something and had not exited the Humvee. Major Lutt shook with adrenaline and more fear than he would admit. "I'll get him," Major Lutt retorted. "I'll run on ahead and catch up with him if I can, Delsey. You keep up the best you can, man. See you at the finish line. Catch me if you can." In that instant, a round hit somewhere to Major Lutt's right, and he jumped and half yelled and half screamed, "Whoa!" Major Lutt was confused and looked around. "Run, you fucking idiot, sir!" barked O'Hagan. Major Eddy Ludt took off as fast as he could in his pencil-pushing body and an armor with plates and carrying his M4 at the ready with his M9 pistol in a holster in his chest. Being weighed down like that and running was not at all graceful, but his M4 assault rifle and his 9mm pistol were locked and loaded before he started the chase. Delsey's seat belt jammed closed, and he was locked in the Humvee until he pulled a spring-operated knife and cut the seat belt strap to get himself free. Upon stepping out of the Humvee, Sergeant Delsey slipped into mud, tripped, and ducked for cover behind the Humvee when 2 rounds hit near his feet about a second apart. This delayed him a good 5 minutes, during which more curses came out of him than he could fit in the small waterproof green notebook that he carried in his cargo pocket. The drivers moved the 3 up-armored Humvees by a building for cover and concealment, but it was evident this would be a fight on foot, as their Humvees could not negotiate the uneven terrain. Busy, the linguist, stayed with the 4 soldiers who pulled security. If he was needed, they would grab him later. He could have chased down the insurgents, but that was not his job. Staff Sergeant Henry Dodge, among the 4, was the designated marksman, and he set his Mk-12 special purpose rifle and scanned the ridgeline for enemy combatants. He was 28 years old, skinny and short, standing at 5 feet 7 inches, with a strong Kentucky accent. He could not have been more than 130 pounds wet. The other 3 soldiers set up a perimeter to the best of their ability, positioning the Humvees as cover and concealment from the incoming fire from the unidentified shooter. The Taliban patrol consisted of almost a dozen combatants. These seasoned Taliban fighters were used to this sort of thing and had taken cover behind the rocks in the hills. They were difficult to spot. The Mark 12 went off, and a spray of red filled the air about 100 meters away, and one was down. Another round resonated, but Dodge missed the moving target, and the Taliban had already moved out of his field of view. Major Eddy Ludt had quite a head start on Sergeant Donald Delsey from New York, and the way he moved, he would need it. Delsey had run track at Penn State before dropping out of college after 1 year to join the Special Forces. The AK-47's familiar rattle, set on full automatic, resonated about 300 yards ahead of Delsey, followed by 3 rounds fired from an M4. It was not a 3-round burst, but first 2 rounds and then 1 round fired quickly afterward, the way Eddy was trained to shoot, with 2 to the chest and 1 to the head. A second insurgent had taken the same path as the one Eddy had first pursued. Neither was trying to engage. They just wanted to escape, and they succeeded. This was their turf. They knew how to run on it. The leader disappeared, leaving only 1 insurgent about 100 yards ahead. The brush thickened. Eddy heard the sharp cracks of the Mark 12 mixed with the fading pops of AK-47 fire. The second insurgent vanished into the foliage, but Eddy kept going. As he burst into a small clearing, he was ambushed by a man crouched behind a barrel. Luckily, the shooter was a terrible shot. Heavy-set, struggling to adopt any kind of tactical position, Eddy dove for cover. He looked through the brush. Not far away, Major Ludt was already in motion. The Taliban fighter had no body armor. Ludt dropped to 1 knee, raised his M4, and looked through his optics. He delivered 3 precise 5.56 millimeter rounds. Eddy remembered his training. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Yeah, easier said than done, he thought. Kind of like when they tell people to remain calm during an airline hijacking. The rounds from Eddy's M4 easily penetrated the metal barrel and killed the fat freedom fighter, who died quickly. Eddy's chest burned from the run and the stress, but he pushed on with the motivation of fear that there was an unidentified sniper trying to kill him. The rush for his first kill was like nothing he ever experienced. His body gave him the energy it needed, like a sugar high. Major Eddy Ludt was more of a city slicker than a farm boy. He pulled his small binoculars from his side pocket. Even his untrained eyes could see movement up ahead, tripping over rocks and trying to present the smallest target possible. Eddy estimated the distance to be over 150 meters from him. If these Taliban would just kindly sit still for a while, Eddy was sure he would eventually hit some of them. Eddy had caught his breath. White beard, glasses. Taliban is older than the others. Another man carries everything for him. The younger man overtook him and entered a blue Nissan pickup truck, while Mr. Whitebeard stopped to use his cellular phone. Wait! Oh my God! It's Asadullah Rahim Bakshi. He was the Taliban commander they had been hunting. Eddie could only maintain a jog. His adrenaline rush could only do so much. A few seconds later, a round hit the upper receiver of his M4, splintering a part of it. Eddie tried to fire it in the direction he thought the shooter fired from, but the weapon jammed, and Eddie followed his training to clear it. Slap, pull, observe, release, tap, squeeze, as fast as he could. Then another round hit the upper receiver of his M4, splintering a part of it. Again, he dropped the now useless gun as more bullets hit the ground around him, and he ran for cover. Shit! Eddie yelled, hearing the rocks kicked up and brush thrashing behind him. He glanced over his shoulder. Delsey was closing in fast, angling towards him from about 20 meters away. That's Ghost 1! Heading for the junkyard! We gotta get him! Major Lutt shouted. He drew his M9A1, switched it to fire, and charged forward. It was not a junkyard, but soldiers called it so because there were over a dozen abandoned vehicles and vehicle parts lying there, immobilized by a previous artillery barrage. A round was already in the chamber of his 9mm pistol, something that Captain Dodd required on all his patrols. Eddie knew the round was coming from the same ridge line that Ghost 1 was on because he saw an occasional muzzle flash from there. Sergeant Delsey ignored Major Lutt and ran off to the right and up the other side of the ridge much faster than Major Lutt thought was possible. Eddie took off running, or what now resembled more of a desperate shuffle than a sprint. He ducked behind an abandoned car just long enough to cock the hammer on his pistol, using his right thumb, careful not to let it slip forward. Gunfire cracked intermittently from several directions. A round grazed Eddie's arm, drawing blood, while he continued to run, accompanied by a colorful barrage of curses. Eddie slid his right index finger into a trigger well just forward of the trigger. His gloves were designed for shooting. They left his index finger and middle finger on his right hand exposed. Eddie took cover behind a tree and raised his binoculars for another look. Ghost 1 was still there. Muzzle flashes lit up the brush, and rounds cracked in Eddie's direction, sending a jolt of panic through him. He couldn't see the shooter, just the bursts of light. He's dug in pretty well, Eddie thought. The man on his phone talking. Nearby, a younger guy worked under the hood of a blue truck, apparently trying to get it started. Eddie felt completely smoked. He knew he didn't have much left in the tank. I'm not going to win this one, he admitted to himself. Armed with only a 9mm and out of range, the odds weren't in his favor. He was too far. I can't make it much further, he thought. Eddie shifted his focus. The best thing he could do now was provide cover and support for Delsey. His right hand aimed the pistol slightly upward as he adjusted his grip to decock it, but he failed to remove his finger from the trigger well. Suddenly, a burst of fire shattered a nearby rock. Tiny shards stung his face and arms. He flinched. The sharp report of an M4 echoed from higher up on the ridgeline in Delsey's position. A blur of motion caught Eddie's eye. Delsey moved like a predator, darting from tree to tree with calculated speed, and efficiently eliminated the shooter. He saved my life, Eddie thought. He's a hero. Staff Sergeant Delsey moved with the fluidity of a seasoned warrior, sprinting from one position to the next, methodically taking down the threat. He made it look easy. A true professional. Then Delsey moved again, this time down the ridgeline towards Ghost 1's location, again using the same tactical maneuvering, taking full advantage of cover and concealment. Eddie dropped his gear, the low-carrying device, the plates, the helmet, even his button-down shirt. Only a sweat-soaked white T-shirt clung to his chest. He had run as fast as he could to support Delsey in reaching Ghost 1. But he wasn't reckless or stupid. He crouched to take his finger out of the trigger guard and decock his M9. Before Eddie could move his finger from inside of the guard, a round cracked beneath his feet. This one came from Ghost One's position. Startled by the unexpected round, Eddie flinched and squeezed the trigger. The hammer dropped. The shot was a complete surprise to Eddie. Shit. It was his first accidental discharge. Genuinely embarrassed, fear flooded him. People gotta go more for that, he thought grimly. Still, Delsey needed him. Every breath could be his last, but Eddie pushed forward. Footsteps approached from behind, but it wasn't the enemy. It was Captain Dot and Sergeant First Class Dorman. You okay, sir? Dot shouted as they took cover behind a large tree. Before Eddie could answer, 2 shots rang out from the M4. It had to be Delsey. Then Dot's phone buzzed. He answered quickly. Really? Are you sure, Sergeant? Okay, better him than us. At least we've got someone to interrogate. What's up, sir? Dorman asked. Dot lowered the phone, stunned. Delsey found Ghost One, dead, shot through the head with a 9mm. And he didn't do it. He doesn't carry one. Dorman's eyes narrowed. Only 3 people on this patrol have pistols, sir. You, me, and Major Ludt, Dot said flatly. Did you do that, sir? I fired a round, Captain, Eddie said in a cracked voice. Eddie put a crumpled pack of cigarettes from his pocket, tapped one out, and lit it. His hands trembled as if he were freezing. Eddie wasn't a regular smoker, but he needed something to calm his nerves. Eddie repeated himself in a softer voice. Dorman helped steady him. Eddie was disoriented and barely on his feet. Captain Dot looked at him, seriously but not unkind. With all due respect, sir, you need a few days off. You're all shook up. Then his face broke into a grin. But how about that fucking headshot, Major? You sure you ain't CIA or some shit? You took out Ghost One. I'm gonna tell Dorman to stop fucking with your ass. That was some serious badass shit, sir. The Bronze Star would read that Major Edward Kevin Lutt had taken out the Taliban commander, Asadullah Rahim Bakshidi, Ghost One, at almost 105 meters. That was more than twice the maximum effective range of Eddie's pistol, which was 50 meters. After the shooting, Eddie was in shock, and the adrenaline kept him going. He was also a little sad. I'm a fake, right? I got lucky, that was all. There were people who lost limbs and even their lives doing much more heroic things. Like so many other things in my life, I tripped into this. Thank you for listening to Chapter 7. When the dust settles, the battlefield doesn't feel like victory. It feels like confusion. There's a body down, a ghost silenced, and a Bronze Star already being drafted. But Major Eddy Ludt knows the truth. He flinched, he panicked, and he fired by accident. That shot that dropped Ghost One wasn't a calculated takedown. It was a mistake, a lucky one, and yet the headlines won't say that. Eddie doesn't feel like a hero. He feels like an imposter wearing boots, a size too big. But the mission is complete, the enemy is dead, and sometimes in war, luck is just another weapon. And whether or not he accepts it, the story will always say he pulled the trigger and got the job done. This is Ken Webb, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening again.